Hey there. Sorry about that. Still figuring this out. So I'm in 3 years. Uh, my name is Daniel Schoonmaker. I'm the executive director of the Michigan Sale and Business Forum, and I'm pleased to welcome you to our webinar in collaboration with REAMP and the Climate Action Campaign. For those that are not familiar with our organization, the forum is a collaboration of business institutions dedicated to promoting business practices and public policies that advance climate leadership, social justice, and the creation of a circular economy. Our organization has been a REAMP member for 4 years. We are the facilitator of the Food Council Engagement Action Team, an active participant in the Michigan Table, and have been kind of floating in and out of various initiatives along the way. And we've also been a member of the Climate Action Campaign's National Coalition for a number of years, and are actively engaged in the Solutions for Pollutions campaign that they'll be talking about in a moment. And thought this would be a great opportunity to bring the two networks together, and are hopeful that that members of REAMP will consider joining the campaign. Before I get away, I want to quickly highlight that we have a webinar coming up that aligns with our work with the Climate Action Campaign. Next Thursday, December 8th, we'll host a webinar on what the election results mean for sustainability initiative in Michigan. So if you're in the state of Michigan or are curious of how some of the peer Midwest states are acting, please feel free to check out that free event, and you'll see we just dropped the registration link for that in there. Now I'd like to turn it over to Erica to kick us off and introduce our program. Again, thank you so much, Erica, for having us today, and I'm looking forward to hearing more from the Climate Action Campaign about how REAMP can work, and to sharing some thoughts about how we benefited from collaboration with the campaign over the past 2 years.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for that introduction. I wanted to just share a little bit about the REAMP network. I know most of us on this call are familiar, but not everybody is. So just wanted to give a chance to kind of share a little bit more. That is not the right share button. We wanted this share button. So here is a photo of some of our lovely members. We are a Midwestern network of about 130 organizations throughout our 9-state region. So we work in South and North Dakota, in Minnesota, in Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio, Illinois, and Kansas and Iowa. So that's our 9-state region. You know, we are a Midwestern network through and through, and we work on quite a few things. This example right here, this picture is actually from our Midwest Climate and Agriculture Summit last year. And you can see Daniel's in that photo. There's a couple other familiar faces folks might recognize, but REAMP works in quite a few different issue areas. Just to give a good grounding here, so our mission really is to set collective strategy and enable collaboration on climate solutions in the Midwest. And specifically, we have a North Star goal of equitably eliminating greenhouse gas emissions in the Midwest by 2050. And that's important, especially when we're thinking about, how can throughout these different areas of work that we do, work to actually eliminate in an equitable way those greenhouse gas emissions. And then on the left-hand side there, you're just going to see an example of actually the last time we had a convening in person, which is pretty wild to say, considering that was 3 years ago at this point. But that was our Network Thinking Academy back in 2019, and you can see more lovely faces of our network there. We also have 6 main values that guide our work. These are really important in terms of the type of work that we engage upon. So, those are collaboration, community, democracy, equity, justice, and scientific rigor. And we also just have a specific way of working that we think sets us apart from other networks and coalitions. And we call these the 3 C's. They're essentially our bread and butter. But the main things that we strive to do throughout our network is to, number one, connect people to each other, like we're doing here today, connecting with different organizations, different campaigns that are being run to really put people in the same room. We also like to co-create strategy. So once we've actually got folks in a room, how can we think about ways to move forward to actually take action together as a Midwestern, strategy setting type of network? We also really enjoy building capacity that actually allows our members to implement the strategy that they need to do. So not only just saying, here's the plan, let's go do it, but what information gaps do we need to fill? What skill building needs to happen, and things like that. So these are 3 C's. They're the bread and butter. It's what we do every single day here at REAMP. And lastly, I just wanted to share that we also have many areas of work that we engage upon. So, this is specifically one type of area that, kind of falls in multiple areas of our priorities, but we do a lot of specialized work within agriculture, within buildings, within energy democracy, as well as integrated voter engagement and transportation. So those are quite different areas, and there's a lot of work that gets done within those areas. But like I said, there's also plenty that intersects between these areas. And I think that this campaign that, I'm excited to learn more about, I think we're going to hear more about some of that interconnection piece. So with that, I'm actually going to pass it over to Daniel again, so that we can hear more about the Solutions for Pollution campaign. And
Thank you, Erica.
yes, I need to get on the right place and stop sharing. There we go.
All right, thank you so much. So I'd like to introduce a friend and collaborator of ours, David Mills, who is the program manager with the Climate Action Campaign. David is a first-generation American, originally from Pennsylvania. Before CAC, he worked for 3 years on congressional campaigns in 4 different states. David, looking to hearing about your work and the Solutions for Pollution project.
Awesome. Thank you, Daniel. And thank you, everyone, for being here today. I'm really excited to talk about our work at CAC and especially how we can work with you guys kind of going forward and how this campaign will look over the next few years. So in a second, let me share my screen. Okay. And cool. So first off, again, my name is David Mills. I'm a program manager with the Climate Action Campaign, otherwise known as CAC. I am a program manager on the partner engagement side of CAC. So I've been lucky enough to work with West Michigan Sustainable Business Forum and many other groups across the country. So again, thank you guys for having me here. Alongside myself, I have my colleague Nick and Jamie, who work for our Pacific State Ops side, and we work on the state table end for Michigan and Wisconsin. And they will have we'll talk to you guys a little bit about their experiences working in both of those states and how Solutions for Pollution has worked with them since we started it in July. So first, kind of just give a quick overview of what CAC is. So CAC is a vibrant coalition of dozen national environment, earth justice, and public health groups. Our goal is to reduce climate pollution and accelerate the transition to clean energy and sustainable society in ways that support justice, jobs, and improved health and quality of life for all. And as I said, we are based in DC, but we work all across the nation, and we work with many groups outside of our area we live in. In DC, we work in Michigan, we work in Wisconsin, we work in Arizona, we work in Nevada, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Virginia. So we are kind of have our hand all over the country with one goal in mind, which is to reduce climate pollution. So as part of our work, we have started a campaign this year, and that campaign is called the Solutions for Pollution. So our goal with Solutions for Pollution is is to keep ambition of the administration and members of Congress high throughout multiple year review process, demonstrate overwhelming public and political support for key rules, especially for key places and constituencies, create opportunities to help move rules, and especially where there are local challenges in particular areas where polluters attack, provide education, organizing and understanding of rulemaking process to motivate partners through engagement in the climate in the campaign amongst different rules, be inclusive, impacted communities as well. Sorry, as we move through rules where there are effective and have them speak in their own voice, enhance their narrative, increase political will in climate filled infrastructure for the future. So I should say right off the bat, these goals are what we're hoping to accomplish. Our main idea with Solutions for Pollution is to push the Biden administration to achieve their goal they set as they were coming into the White House of cutting pollution by 50% by 2030. And as you guys might know, with the passing of the Inflation Reduction Act this past summer, with that bill in particular, we have got the goal with that bill is to cut pollution by 40%. Now that is great, and the bill itself does have its flaws and many things, but that is a big push, and one of the biggest pushes in this country's history to get actual climate change and climate work done. But it's not enough. But we want to continue to push the Biden administration to get to their goal of cutting pollution by 50% by 2030. And we believe the Biden administration and the organizations they have under their wing, like the EPA, have the ability with rules and standards that they are working on and what they control can have us reach our goal and even surpass it. So that is the premise of Solutions for Pollution, is to get to that 50% goal. And because it is exclusively on the behest of the Biden administration, we are focusing on them, and we are putting all our attention towards the administration, and we want to work with as many groups as possible to reach that goal, because the best way we can get the attention of the Biden administration is through as many groups as possible, and not only that, working with a wide diversity of groups wide diversity of groups to get their attention and make sure that they have the strongest standards and the strongest rules as we go into our campaign. So we are recruiting as part of the campaign, we were recruiting members for our campaign. As I said, we want as many members as possible that kind of show our standing with the Biden administration on the importance on particular rules. So this is what it means to be a member of the Solutions for Pollution campaign. We provide numerous opportunities over the next 2 years for groups to engage on these standards and executive actions through generating public comments, turning out for public hearings, participating in public and media-sponsored events, helping to broaden the coalition, and creating and sharing social media content, and more to ensure that the Biden administration sets the strongest possible standards and moves as many of these policies as quickly and boldly as possible. So, as I said, with these standards, with these rules, each one of these have a comment period and a period of deliberation, pretty much, in which the EPA or the Biden administration takes in public feedback to see how strong the rules should be or how the rule is dictated. And so the way we feel the best way to have our members be a part of having their voices heard and making sure that they are a part of that is one is grassroots comments. So a grassroots comment is very similar to a petition in that anyone can sign it. It is pretty much a pre-written comment that we share, that anyone can sign on to, pretty much saying, yes, I support the strongest rule, and yes, I want there to be action on this particular standard. So usually when we have a rule come out, we have a generated grassroots comment, and we can share that out to anyone, and they can just put their name, attach it to it, an email, and we send that to the EPA on the particular standard. They take note, and they make sure to account for that. So for when that comes up, we want as many grassroots comments as possible to make sure we get the most support behind it. Now, a grass top comment is another way we are trying to get attention. A grass top comment in particular is when an expert writes a comment to about the standard or rule. So for instance, if we have a rule particularly on coal or anything like that, we want experts to talk about the effects of that coal has in community. So a public health expert, a business expert, of how working with standards work with that to get the attention, to get standards in. So grass top comments are made for experts to write their own comment and send that in as well. And as I said, it does have a little more weight because it's an expert that knows more than say the general public. So those in particular comments are very important to us, and we're also hoping to get as much as possible. And in addition to that, every hearing, every rule / standard the EPA has, they have a testifying period, which is a virtual hearing, which anyone is able to just hop onto a Zoom call and pretty much talk about why the rule is important. Usually it's about 2 or 5 minutes. It's pretty quick, but this is another way we can have people kind of just share the reasoning for wanting to have the rule be as strong as possible, or having an action be as strong as possible. And these happen every time there is a hearing. So those are the key actions we ask for members, but obviously there's a lot more to it if you become a member. As I said in the top, social media, being a part of social media, sharing it, sharing attention for the rule, being a part of events for the rule, those are as important as well. And in inclusion as well, when you join the campaign, we also have state and national calls just discussing in particular areas and nationwide, where we talk about the rule, give more information about a rule. Obviously, we don't anticipate everyone understanding the particulars of every single EPA standard / rule that comes out. So we want to give as much information as possible, and that's what those state and national calls are. And we also have trainings as well, where we get an expert on to talk to our groups as well. Lastly, as anyone that signs on to become a member, we have an open letter to President Biden that if you sign on to the campaign, you are a part of that letter, which basically states we want these standards and rules from the EPA and the Biden administration to be as strong as possible for the remainder of his first term. So we actually had a national launch this September. And then alongside that, we had 8 state launches in a variety of states. But pretty much what we had, our launch was very successful, and we were very excited to have it around the country. So this is, like I said, in Wisconsin, Georgia, Arizona, Nevada, and so on. What we hope, each event had a public health professional, a racial and environmental justice professional, and clean energy business, scientists, youth, and environment conservation expert as well. These are the groups we are key to thinking that the Biden administration will list to more than particular groups, but they are not the only groups we look for. But these are the groups we had for our launches. And like I said, we were very excited to have our launch back in September. Since then, since September 12th, we have had over 235 groups signed on, and we are excited to have as many as we do to be a part of this campaign. And here's just a quick look of all the standards we are working on. So as I said, this campaign is for the next 2 years of President Biden's campaign. We are hoping to work on 20 rules. As you might see, there's only 14. So we are still working on finalizing the last 6 rules over the next 2 years. And lastly, I'll say, if there's not a particular rule that one of our members doesn't see on there, we do our best to work with our members to share feedback, let us know if there's a rule they are more interested in, one particular one. If a member signs on, just because there's 20 rules we have, this does not necessarily mean you guys have to work on every single rule. We want to be as flexible as possible with our members. So if there's a particular rule you guys care about, that's the rule you guys can focus on. So I would say, if you see a rule that you see here, but you're not sure about any of the other rules, you can definitely just focus on that particular rule. We want our members to feel as comfortable with working on any rule as possible. So if there's any rule you guys see that on there, just know that we will work on it and do our best to work with you guys to put as much focus on it. So one particular rule that we are focusing on as our first major rule is the soot rule, and in particular the soot air quality standards, and which limits the dangerous fine particulate pollution that triggers asthma attacks and leads to respiratory problems, heart attacks, and premature death. This is a huge rule for us. This is one of the biggest rules that we are going to be working on this campaign. We were expecting it to come out this fall, but it's not looking that it will come out. Hasn't come out as of yet. So as of right now, but this is kind of what our outlook would look like for it. So we are expecting when the rule does come out, we will have about 30 to 90 days to work on that particular rule, gather comments, work on the hearing. This is, as I said, one of our biggest rules, and so we have an ambitious goals for it. So we are hoping to collect 500,000 grassroots comments and then 2,500 grass top comments. So in particular, just to kind of give you guys an overview, right now we are in kind of a holding pattern with a lot of these rules because the EPA, the White House has been very slow to work on these rules in particular and have action towards it. So one of the things we are doing to push the White House to get these rules out is we have a soot petition that we are working on, which anyone can sign, and is pretty much just asking the president and Administrator Regan from the EPA to work faster in getting these rules out so we can work on them on a particular better basis. And so I will be sharing this particular petition as something anyone here can sign on to, or anyone they know can sign on to, as something we are working on. But yes, this is one of our rules. Another rule that we're currently waiting for to work on is the Methane Rule. In particular, the oil and gas pollution standard will expand and strengthen current limits on methane pollution for new, modified, and existing oil and natural gas operations. Methane is a powerful climate polluter, more than 80 times more potent than carbon dioxide. This rule is pretty much coming out. This is something where we want to put a little attention to it. So we are working to work on this one as well. This one actually has a hearing set for the testifying, and this is something I would also share. And the hearing itself is on the January 10th and 11th. So we are taking signups for anyone who's interested in testifying for that public hearing. And I'll be able to share that link after my presentation. But also there is also going to be a public comment opening soon, and it will be a 90-day public comment. Okay, so I kind of gave a broad overview of Solutions for Pollution and what we're looking to accomplish, what we're working on currently, and what it means to be a member of our campaign. So I wanted to bring on my colleagues Nick and Jamie to kind of talk about what it means to be a part of our state end and working on Solutions for Pollution. and being a part of our state table sides of it. And I'll hand it off to Nick, who can talk about the Michigan side, and then after Nick would be Jamie, who will talk about the Wisconsin side. And I'll stop sharing my screen. Go ahead,
Great.
Nick.
Yeah, thanks so much, David, and great to be on this call with you all. My name is Nick Panley-Bouton. I use he, him pronouns. I'm currently based in Washington, D.C. As alluded to just on that previous slide, I'm a regional organizing manager with the Climate Action Campaign, and I help coordinate our Michigan State Table, which right now is comprised of multiple groups, including Moms Clean Air Force, their Michigan chapter, EDF Action, and we also work in partnership with LCB, Blue Green Alliance, and others. So you know, just to give a brief overview of how we've been engaging in our Solutions for Pollution campaign since September post-launch. Of course, we coordinated a launch event outside the Lansing State Capitol with our various partners and local legislatures and other speakers in that. But we've really been trying to raise awareness around the Biden administration's delays in their rulemaking process as a whole, just given the concerns we have of how backlogged the EPA is in terms of releasing the methane regulations and the soot regulations. So David alluded to that petition a little earlier. Some recent actions I can speak to is that, as well as Jamie, is that folks from both our Michigan and Wisconsin table helped circulate a sign-on letter that other environmental and public health groups signed on to, addressed to the EPA and the Biden administration around these concerns around rulemaking. And we helped deliver that letter to the EPA Region 5 office in Chicago as like a Great Lakes regional action that mirrored similar deliveries we did across the country as well as in DC. But just a little example of what we've been up to and what we're currently doing. But I'll go ahead and pass it to Jamie. Talk about Wisconsin.
Hey, thanks, Nick, and thanks, David, and thanks everyone for having me. So my name's Jamie. I also use he, him pronouns, and I'm also in DC. I am the table manager for Wisconsin at CAC. And we're doing a lot of the same things that Nick just spoke about, and very much following everything that David as well just covered. We took part in that drop-off Nick mentioned, and right now we're really gearing up for the Methane Rule. Our coalition in Wisconsin right now is just over 10 groups, so we would love to add some more. Anyone who wants to join is more than welcome. We have groups ranging from Wisconsin conservation voters, you know, some of the big ones, all the way to some really local groups like Wheeler Solar Foundation, and, you know, some pretty small operations. So there's space for everyone and every type of group. You know, as mentioned, we're a little bit in limbo, waiting for some of the comment periods to open, especially for the soot rule to come out. But we are able to begin collecting grasshoppers comments for the methane rule, and we're beginning our work on that this week. So we do monthly meetings. We meet once a month, unless something really, really major is happening. We do it as a state. When something really major is happening, we join David and his team and every other group across the country for kind of a major briefing. We try not to make things take too long, but we definitely give ourselves as much space as possible because, of course, it's a lot of information. So yeah, we're really flexible. It's a really fun, hardworking group, and we'd love to have as many people as possible join us. So with that, I'll pass it back to David. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Nick and Jamie. And I will go back to sharing my screen. So yeah. So pretty much our next call of action is if you are interested in signing on to Solutions for Pollution, we have our sign up link, which I will share in a second, but you can click on the screen, I believe, and I will also share these slides as well, where we'll kind of just go over exactly what I kind of talked about what a Solutions for Pollution is, and why we're hoping to have you guys sign on. And so I'll put the sign-on link in the chat in 1 second. And then as Jamie and Nick said, we are also, and I said earlier, we're also working on a petition to get as many people to sign on as possible, so the EPA and President Biden can work on getting these rules out quicker. And then lastly, if you are interested in the methane rule in particular, and want to be a part of our hearing, we will have a hearing link in the chat as well, and also share it afterwards. And you would just put your name in our spreadsheet, and then when the hearing is ready to go, we will contact you and give you a little more information on methane and what in particular to talk about, and just give you all the details for the hearing in particular. So I will share that after this, but I just wanted to ask if there's any questions, and I'll stop sharing my screen.
Hey, David, Nick, Jamie, could you maybe share a little bit on why first the methane rule is important to equity eliminating emissions in the Midwest, and how that's uniquely applicable to our communities. I'm thinking about communities like maybe like North Dakota that has a lot of oil and gas exploration, and how it's really helpful for the administration to hear from voices like those that are represented in REAMP.
Nick or Jamie, you want to take that from your discussions with your groups about methane?
Sure, I can take a stab at that. Great question, Daniel, and you're definitely right. You know, in terms of this current methane proposal by the EPA, there are certainly priority states in which that may be more affected than others in terms of this proposal. You mentioned North Dakota, Texas, you know, a lot of the states that deal with these oil and gas, flaring projects, etc. But that's not to say that methane isn't affecting the Midwest as a whole as well. You know, I don't have the numbers at the top of my head, but I'm sure I could share. We have tons of fact sheets, whether that be national or regional or even state-based, on how methane pollution is affecting Michigan, Wisconsin, the Great Lakes region. But it's incredibly important to speak to the breadth and depth of the issue at hand, from that kind of cross-state perspective, to answer your question. You know, I think something that David kind of alluded to in talking about our Solutions for Pollution campaign, one thing we're really trying to hone in on, whether it's about this current methane rule, the upcoming soot rule, or other federal regulations and safeguards coming down the road, is really taking this kind of big tent approach to creating a narrative around pollution and why it needs to be addressed, not just from the environmental perspective, right? A lot of us are green groups on this call. You know, that's what people expect to hear that message from us, you know, to be frank. But we try to uplift public health voices as well, scientists, teachers, parents, the labor community, etc. So the more diverse perspectives and voices we can work with and help center when talking about these often very intersectional issues, the better, in our opinion.
And I think thinking of kind of the same for the soot rule, and that's something that is much more universal in our communities.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
particulate matter specifically is very relevant to states in the Midwest and the Great Lakes region. I can speak to Michigan specifically, just based on my experience working with our state table, but Detroit having some of the worst air quality in the country, the amount of pollution that comes from vehicles and transportation across these states, especially in Michigan, is huge. So it's especially relevant. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's where, I really think about when we talk about the disproportionate levels of particulate matter in various communities within the Midwest, we always see that they are amongst Black and Brown communities, right? And so there's this huge understanding that these types of regulations are really important, not just for everybody, but especially to account for some of these equity issues. And that's something that, I know here in the Kansas City region, we have a couple different organizations that are really advocating for that. And I think it's something that's really, really important to talk about in the context of this conversation, just to really understand that we are talking about something that is very critical in terms of talking about the health and the well-being of communities. It's not just a technicality of just, this number of emissions, this number of, XYZ, but rather something that directly does impact the lives of folks here in our communities in the Midwest.
So yeah, our organization's been an active member of REAP for a number of years, and I found the collaboration we found from the network to be incredibly impactful, and it's helped us a great deal of work. And we've identified a lot of very useful partnerships through our collaboration there. And likewise, we've had a lot of value in the national stage from working with the Climate Action Campaign, because an organization like ours that is based in Michigan and not heavily resourced, probably middle of the road for a REAP member. We don't have quite the means to stay up on these issues and to activate as much as some of the big green organizations do, and so being involved in the campaign has really been an asset to us. And we're really excited specifically about the Solutions for Pollutions project, because with this campaign, we're seeing a divided government now with at the federal level, and know that some of our greatest legislative wins are probably going to be in the past 2 years rather than the coming 2 years, and we think that's that this is really going to be where a lot of the action is going to happen over the next few years, is being able to reduce emissions through through these administrative rules, and are really pleased to have the opportunity to partner with the campaign and its many founding organizations to be able to advance this work. And if there's any questions by anyone that's on as far as whether or not they should join the campaign and get involved, I'd love to share more about how we found it valuable.
Yeah, I think that would be great to open it up for questions. Folks have they want to come off mute, you want to raise your hand, drop it in the chat, any of those work. And, I do want to add too, that we're kind of thinking about this in terms of there's obviously, a number of collaboration that's happening even on this call. And so wanting to say, if you have questions about REAMP or, want to join REAMP for those who aren't, feel free to drop me a message. I'm going to drop my email here in the chat, and please feel free to reach out if you have any questions about, REAMP and our involvement, in general on these types of issues. I'd be happy to sit down and have a conversation. So feel free to do that. But I would love to see, if folks have questions for Nick or David or Jamie, or even Daniel too, I would love to just see if there's anything from you folks here.
I've got a question. I know public comment periods can feel pretty daunting to people who have not really dove into that world before. And that Grasstop's comments do go a little bit further. So what are some of your kind of top tips and best practices for getting those Grasstop's leaders to not only put forth a public comment but to also make sure that it's effective?
Yeah. Dan, you can speak to this as well. So when we have a particular Grasstop comment period, we want to do as much as possible to make it as easy as possible for experts to write their own comment and kind of give them as many resources as possible. So usually when we do have the period open, and as Jamie said, we're most likely opening with methane this week, we share pretty much like a template of what we usually see for a particular comment, and they can look at that template and see if they can write it in their own way. But in that template, we want to make sure we put like the key points of what to hit, what to talk about. Obviously, it's a unique comment, so everyone's going to have a different one, but we want to use that template as like a starting point for our Grasstop commenters as well as just like as well as we have a bunch of training materials, for instance, Nick said our state fact sheets or just our general fact sheets about the particular rule, and we want to give that material as well, or just have it available for anyone that is interested. And so they can kind of get a great grasp on it. I mean, the good thing is with the comment period in general is there's time, and so they can take their time with it. This is not something we need tomorrow. This is, like I said, we have a 90-day period with methane. So if they want to just take their time to look at the resources, ask me, Nick, or Jamie, or anyone else from CAC in particular, if there's about the role, how they're writing it, we have that all available for them. So we want to make it as easy and straightforward as possible when someone is interested in writing a Grasstop comment.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Great question. Any other questions about, the campaign in general, hearing about these regulations? We would welcome any of that. One thing I'm curious about, I know that there's obviously a whole list of those rules that are all important in their own way. We've touched on it some, but I'd be curious to know a little bit more about, this emphasis on the soot rule specifically and the methane emissions, and why that has been selected as something that is so salient for us to really focus on right now in this moment.
I can take that, David. Great question. I think the first answer is just because, well, those are the two rules that we see coming this the soonest, to be honest. So they're probably the most tangible or soon to be tangible rules to work on. Specifically the methane rule. It was just greenlit by the Office of Management and Budget of the White House, and we expect the comment window to open any day now from the EPA. Now, the soot rule has a little more relevance and weight to it, to its significance, and why we plan to prioritize especially that rule moving forward. As David alluded to, the underlying mission within the Solutions for Pollution campaign is to get the US to a 50% reduction in emissions in the next decade. If implemented correctly, huge emphasis on the if, the IRA would get us to about a 42% reductions in emissions in the next decade. So there's like a 12 to 18% gap we need to close in a very short amount of time. And folks, scientists, policy experts, way smarter than me, have really honed in on this soot rule and this particulate matter standard that to be released by the EPA is a huge avenue to get us there. Not to mention as well that there are a plethora of studies that point to the stronger standards and stronger enforcement on soot leads to thousands of lives saved. I think you spoke to this, Erica. I think we can often in this line of work get lost in the numbers, but at the end of the day, we're talking about real lives and people's health here. So I'm sure we all know folks who suffer from asthma or use inhalers. These are the folks we're really trying to help. And any way we can do that at as big of a scale as possible is what we're going to be doing.
Good question. I wanted to answer on Rose's question, and thanks, Nikki, for answering that one. I mentioned public and media sponsored events. If someone wants to attend one near them, how do they find one nearby, or how do they host one in particular affiliate with you? So I would say in particular of how they would attend one or how they would host one, pretty much, or just like attending one or being a part of one. So that's why we have our state calls as well for each group in particular, as well as our national calls. We want to use those calls as pretty much like a call to action to get people on board with something our groups are working on or planning to work on. So we definitely want to use those calls to the advantage of one, promote events our partners are doing, and also just get as many people as possible there. Also, obviously, we would share out as much as possible the email to reach out to groups that we think would be interested in a particular event. If there's an event happening in Michigan, we want to make sure all the members of Michigan know about it. So we'll most likely, beyond a state call, just make sure to reach out to all of our state members in that particular area. Sometimes it could be neighboring states as well, and making sure they know about that. Also, we will most likely have event pages through a website called Mobilize, and that's pretty well known. But if you don't know, that's pretty much a huge organizing event plan page, a sign up website that we use, and we will also probably share that. In terms of hosting one, so when you sign on to Solutions for Pollution, we want to make sure that our resources are at CAC are able to help you guys as well. So if you are interested in hosting an event, you would reach out to one in particular table that you're working with, or a member you're working with, or just reach out to our general Solutions for Pollution contacts, and we will work with you. We will talk with you. We'll get our comms team to help you with working in preparation for an event. We have a great comms team, and they're willing to help as much as possible. And then because we have such a wide spectrum of groups that have signed on, Solutions for Pollution and beyond that, we will make sure we share that with all of our groups, your event you're hosting, and give you as many resources as possible to have a successful event wherever you do have it.
Great. That's really helpful for folks to know. Wanting to know if anybody else has questions, if they want to drop that in the chat, or if there's like a follow-up. I don't know who would want to maybe drop their email if folks have questions about the campaign specifically.
Yeah, I'll drop mine right now. And I will also share my slides with Erica and West Michigan Sustainable Business Forum, so they can share that out as well, to if they need to just share out what we just talked about. But please feel free to reach out to me and Nick as well. We're happy to answer as many questions as possible.
Great. Any last questions here?
Yes, so Erica, one quick question, just as an add-on to what Rose's question was. So do you have any pre-scheduled events already planned for next year, already on the calendar that we can look out for, maybe in our areas or in other areas if we find ourselves in other places and we may want to be able to join an event that you already have scheduled out right now? Do you already have any pre-planned already?
That's a great question. I'll
No,
pass it over
totally.
to David.
Yeah, I'll kind of hand it over to Nick and Jamie, who work in the relative area. I don't know if you guys have anything in mind that you guys are working on already, but I mean, yeah, if you guys have anything in mind that you guys are planning for next year already.
Yeah, nothing on the books, Bobby. Good question. Things we are just beginning to noodle on, for lack of a better term, really pertaining to the soot rule. We're potentially going to start a social media campaign with, I alluded to folks who use inhalers a little earlier, but collecting personal video testimonies and trying to turn it into some narrative building effort online, virtually, around soot. So just getting folks personal stories on what it's like living with asthma or using an inhaler and why they're advocating for this soot rule or just, cleaner air and better air quality. More information to come on that. But we are planning, we'll likely be doing something along those lines. David, I know you've been kind of involved in that initial planning process, but things are very tentative as of now, but we'll make sure we loop in Erica or Daniel, so we can plug in this coalition as well.
And Wisconsin's in a really similar spot. We'll also be doing the inhaler event and everything that goes along with that. And we'd love to keep everyone looped in. So please reach out if you're interested.
Great. Well, any other last questions here before we start to close out? Okay. And any last words from Daniel, from anyone on the CAC team, just for the good of the group?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you, Erica, to you and Reamped for giving us this opportunity. We're really excited about Solutions for Pollution campaign as we move into the next part of President Biden's administration. And we're really excited to work with you guys and anyone else who is particularly interested. And yeah, just thank you guys again for giving us the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys for being here. Really appreciate it. Daniel, any last words from you?
No, thank you again, Erica, for putting this together, and thank you everyone for joining us today.
Awesome. Well, it's been really fabulous to have you guys here. Really appreciated all that you shared and really enjoyed, honestly, learning more about this campaign. So I hope others felt the same way. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. There are a few emails listed there in the chat. If you have Reamp specific questions, feel free to ping me. If you've got questions about the campaign, feel free to reach out to David and Nick and Jamie. And otherwise, we will look forward to staying in touch. And I hope that everybody has a great rest of their day. Thanks so much for being here. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.